The next external factor to impact Detroit Lake arrived in the form of America's next cultural symbol. The automobile brought new residents and tourists to Detroit Lake. The roads were extended and improved around the lake, leading to the development of one of the first golf courses in Minnesota, the Detroit Country Club in 1925. The golf course served as an added tourist attraction, which brought more visitors to the lake. The automobile brought a dramatic increase in the construction of seasonal homes, hotels, and resorts on the lake. F. H. Wright, a nephew of E.G. Holmes, impacted Detroit Lake by developing the first luxury resort hotel on the north shore of the lake.
There was a couple other gentlemen by the name of McCarthy and Albert Marthy who built the Edgewater. Dad ended up buying that in 1934. We had a clientele down there that was not necessarily local. A lot of it came from the Midwest, a lot of it came from the South. And a lot of these people would come up, believe it or not, to northern Minnesota for the cool summer evenings. There was no personalized air conditioners in the homes that were in Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, Illinois, Missouri. So a lot of the advertising was focused on drawing people up to cool northern Minnesota. I started at the Edgewater when I was 12 cleaning fish. I made $400 that summer at a nickel a fish. That's a lot of fish. Back during World War II, a lot of people would think that business fell off. It didn't. It increased. People were able to maybe not get gas for their cars, but they could take trains. And the business that they had in Detroit Lakes was tremendous. The problem was finding help. President Roosevelt also rounded up all the Japanese Americans and put them in camps. And one of the things that my dad did, they ended up getting these Japanese Americans who were American citizens out on work release to work. So we had Japanese working in the kitchen and in the dining room. It was quite contentious because there were a lot of people, obviously. I remember Dad would get, there were crosses that were burned in his front yard, and I mean, it was pretty rough there for a while.
As the years went by, Detroit Lake witnessed creative changes concerning how people used the lake, slowly shifting from primarily fishing to other forms of entertainment.
I purchased Clem's dock in 1985 from Clem. I had a lot of customers that came every year. When I had the dock, there was very few pontoons. Matter of fact, a pontoon with a 50 horsepower motor was, most of them didn't have that, that big a motor. And now they're, 300 horse, and they got everything on them now. One of the things that I used to love to do was people watch, and that was a good place to do it. There was a landing right there, and it was always a lot of entertainment trying to watch people back a boat in. I'd sit there and I'd watch. First the husband would do it, and he couldn't do it, and then the wife would do it. She couldn't do it, and then the husband was yelling at the wife. It was always something interesting. It was like farming, it was never the same.
Detroit Lake witnessed the construction of the pavilion in 1915. During the early years, the pavilion served as a dance hall and convention center. As time went by, the pavilion primarily focused on family events and concerts.
I took tickets at the Deal Pavilion when they had the bands. They had a lot of big bands there. I had the Hullabaloos, Herman's Hermits, the Yardbirds, the Bull Brummels, Paul Revere and the Raiders, and who knows how many others. That was back when there was a lot of activity down there. The pavilion had a band every weekend from Memorial Weekend to Labor Day weekend.
Detroit Lake continues to witness the pavilion serving families and the community for special events. Detroit Lake faced unprecedented challenges as activities increased dramatically along its shores.
When the automobile came to this area, it was accompanied by an explosion of lakeshore development. All of these factors led to problems with runoff, agricultural runoff and urban runoff and shoreline disturbance, and particularly use of septic systems. Lake associations were formed to kind of cope with that, trying to figure out what to do. They poisoned the lake a few times, and they did a little weed harvesting. I remember they closed a milk plant because it was discharging its waste into the river. And by the mid-60s, it was crisis time. Pelican River Watershed District came into existence as the first watershed district in the state whose objective was to take care of lakes. The watershed district from its inception has been interested in applying science to solve problems. Very quickly caused the city to build a sewage treatment plant that was up to standards. Stormwater runoff from building projects and lands associated with the lake, runoff into the rivers that lead to the lake, and all of these things were much more tightly controlled under the watershed district.
A project remembered as the Miracle Mile began to take shape in 1965. This project served two purposes. First, to improve water quality, and second, to provide our city residents access to 1 mile of beach to play in and enjoy on the west side of Detroit Lake.
In 1971, the state of Minnesota became a friend of Detroit Lake by mandating controls over shoreline development. In 1972, the city of Detroit Lakes finally came to the aid of the lake. A 21-year project to place water and sewer pipes around Detroit Lake significantly improved water quality in the lake. Even though water quality issues were being addressed, the lake faced other challenges.